Welcome to Horizons Forum. My name is Francisco Bushtin, and I'm the Vice President of Grants, Programs, and Communications at Horizons Foundation. We are thrilled to have you join us today for this special South Bay Town Hall event, which is part of the Horizons Forum series. Horizons Forum is a program designed to connect the public with experts for insightful discussions on the issues that matter most to the LGBTQ community. Today's town hall offers an invaluable opportunity to hear from local nonprofit leaders, learn about the services available in your area, and explore ways we can all contribute through volunteerism and donations to support our community. During these challenging times, we need to come together, strengthen our bonds, and discuss how we can continue to uplift and empower each other. We're excited today to be joined by Gabrielle Antolovich from Billy DeFrank Lesbian and Gay Community Center, Cameron Seller from Coast Pride, and Frankie Sapp from the San Mateo County Pride Center. All of these organizations operate across multiple counties in the South Bay, and in many cases, beyond. In the interest of time, we'll skip formal introductions and dive right into the discussion. I encourage you to learn more about each organization and our panelists by visiting the Horizon San Francisco Bay Area LGBTQ organization directory. So today we are fortunate to be joined by leaders representing 3 LGBTQ centers. And I've often said that LGBTQ centers are absolutely vital in fostering a sense of community and really providing crucial resources. They truly serve as hubs for our community and are often the first place individuals turn to when seeking services or connection with the broader community. Now, the South Bay is fortunate to have 3 LGBTQ centers, 1 in Santa Clara County and 2 in San Mateo County. These centers, as you all know, offer a variety of services, including programs for youth and elders, health and wellness initiatives, and opportunities for community building, just to name a few of the many programs and services they offer. With that, let's dive into our conversation. My first question is for all 3 centers, and it's the same question for each one of you. So, Gabrielle, let's start with you. Let's start with the Billy DeFrank Center. It's based out of San Jose, serving not only Santa Clara County, but also parts of South Alameda County, parts of neighboring counties to the south of Santa Clara and beyond. So what are some of the biggest challenges the Billy DeFrank Center is facing right now, and how are you finding innovative ways to continue providing essential services to the LGBTQ community?
Can I talk for 3 hours? Okay, I won't. I think the biggest challenges began when the internet happened, and being in the Silicon Valley, it happened big. And so what happened there is, I'm sure if anyone was around, people thought, oh, I don't need to go to gay bars to meet people. I don't need to go to the community center. I can meet people online. And that really created a shift in how people interacted with each other. And then what happened, I think about 10 years ago, I came to the Billy DeFrank Center, and my first thought was, I need to convince people to meet people in person again. Come on out. And I have to say, I did a lot of outreach, talking to people, and then Sam Liccardo, who was the mayor at the time, he wanted to help us, and so he and I put together the Rainbow Crosswalk, the first one in the South Bay. And for some reason, that changed things. About 400 people showed up, in person, and all of the press showed up as well, because it was, back in 2016, it was a unique issue. And then boom, people started coming to the center, and that was great. And then the pandemic happened. Oh my goodness. And what saved us was Zoom and things like that. And now we have have a different White House that we have ever had. And what I'm seeing is that centers like ours, when there's such a huge shift, it means we have to get so creative about everything. And I think one of the first things we have discovered is that we can't do everything all at once. We have to rely on other organizations and other people. A really good example is we just had Trans Day of Visibility. That is a signature event that the Billy DeFrank Center has been doing since 2010. And to honor that, you know, we really listened to our transgender folks, and they said they wanted it to be at Billy DeFrank, even though visibility is out there. They want the visibility within the walls. And the other thing that we did was we actually invited a lot of allies like PFLAG, and I announced PFLAG and I said, these are the parents that have worked through their issues around having trans LGBTQ kids. And please, you know, talk to each other. And there were all different kinds of allies that were there. We had Representative Zoe Lofgren come, and I worked with her people and her for weeks beforehand about what is it that people need to hear from you, you know, because these elected officials have a million things they're doing right now. And then we had Senator Dave Cortese come and say how mad he was with our governor for saying the anti-trans thing about trans women in sports. And that was very supportive, you know. And then we had other people get up and talk about being at rallies and how empowering that felt. And so, you know, we went on and had regular people get up and speak after all the elected officials did their thing. And the most important thing has been is elevating our voices, not just the important people's voices, you know. And so the whole event, I mean, we ended up having almost 600 people come through in waves. It was amazing. But the other thing that happened, and I'll finish on that, is that somebody was organizing a trans rally. And I felt it was important that we help promote that. And so we did. We, instead of having to do a rally as well and feeling that we need to do everything, we supported the people who did the rally, which was on Trans Day of Visibility. And that's how I think it really helps to work together that way. Like, we don't have to do everything, but keep an eye out on how we can support other tangential events and workshops so that together we have everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for lifting that. So it sounds like, you know, there's a coalescing of more parts of our community, regardless of the event, especially at this time. And yeah, and you know, centers how they can serve that as the hub for organizing, and people finding each other. Frankie, let me move over to you. It's to San Mateo County. In terms of, you know, based in San Mateo, serves the peninsula of San Mateo County, northern Santa Clara, definitely beyond. Can you share some of the biggest challenges you're facing right now and how you're finding innovative ways to continue providing some of these essential services to the community?
Yeah, thank you, Francisco. And I'm gonna say also with Cam here, there might be some overlap in answers. So forgive me, Cam, I'm not trying to steal any of yours that you already prepared. And I think it's going to be a good segue on what Gabriella just said about coordinated efforts. But before I begin, I just want to let people know it's important to me to say I do live with Tourette syndrome. So if you see me twitching and clearing my throat, which I have to do because I just said I have Tourette's, it's not, you know, I am being serious. It's not a joke. So just letting people know. but that's what's going on. So I think by and large, and I think this is very relatable, but when it comes to big challenges, a lot of it has to do with still financial constraints, which seems to be getting even more reduced. And then that has to do with limited staffing capacity. Um, and then I think also when it comes to, like, one of the things that we love about the Pride Center so much is that 100% of us identify as LGBTQ plus. And what I say is there's a benefit to that because we know the work and we know what's needed. Definitely listening to the community for sure. But I always say that using people with lived experience also comes at a cost. So everything that is happening right now also impacts us personally. And it's bearing that bridge, right? Doing the work, supporting it, being even more invested, but at the same time, still being hurt, right? And being confused and harmed and bearing the weight of it, right? While you're supporting others. And I think that's another challenge that needs to be named. So how do we take care of each other while also doing the work to take care of others? And then I think uh, one of the other challenges is also getting people to still realize and recognize that not every letter in what I call the alphabet soup is the same. So we name, right, like a lot of the anti-LGBTQ plus legislation is coming down, and a lot of it is also, as named, targeting trans and gender diverse communities. But we need all of us within that alphabet and outside of that alphabet to show up for all of us and to remember that inclusive of all LGBTQ plus individuals, everything else that's coming down the pipe still involves and impacts us because our identities are so much more than sexuality and gender. The anti-racist legislation, the anti, fill in the blanks, it still impacts us. So it's still getting everyone to realize we're all in this together and we need to be in it together. But like Gabrielle was saying, the coordinated effort really matters. Um, because we can't all do everything, speaking to limited capacity financial constraints. San Mateo County Pride Center is largely funded for mental health resources. So we have a clinical team, our programming, everything. It's all about reducing socialization. But as the only countywide serving uh, community center, we're not funded for tackling legislation, advocacy, but we're the only one. So everyone needs us to do everything. So how do we lean on others in our areas? And like, I know maybe Cam, I'll just let you speak to, we found out when Cam and I meet, we wanted to do the same things. So let's not both do it, right? Let's work together. No duplicated efforts. And I think that's what we really need right now is we are fortunate to live in California, even with some of the negative stuff that's happened. We're even more fortunate to live in the Bay Area. So, what is our role and what is our place? If we take care of mental health, so to speak, then we can lean on, the Transgender Law Center to help us with understanding this legislation and advocacy, right? Like it's referral, it's knowing who everyone is. And that's not innovative, but it's reminding us we can't do everything. Let's be smart, let's be efficient, and let's rely on the people who are doing their jobs to the best of their abilities, and they're the experts in that roles. Um, so I think the coordinated efforts, like Coast Pride and the Pride Center worked on some fantastic resources. Cam, I think you're the best person to speak to that. We've made sure that we have hybrid programming. There are so many challenges. Some people really need to come in person, some people can't. So we've made both opportunities. We've had satellite programs. Some people are really afraid and have always been to come to the big gay building. Um, Insert every other letter, but I'm using that language specifically, and I think our event coordinator's done a fantastic job of being very creative herself. And then with the limited capacity, we have a very small clinical team. So creating more clinical groups, but then we know we can address the immediate need and trends of what is happening. So I think just on trans week of visibility, we had an like just expanding and expanding, but really listening to the need. And then I think again, but because we are the community we serve, there's an advantage um, to what we're able to offer. And then our challenge is making sure we're taking care of each other while we do it.
No, thank you for saying that. And and I just want to. I think there's a thread that's flowing through, right? I think Gabrielle and you said it, and I'll turn it over to you, Cameron. But but I'm pretty sure we'll hear the same thing. But that we are slowly coming together as a community, and I think the other piece, and one of Horizon's board members said it some time ago that when you focus on lifting the underserved, unforgotten parts of our community, all of us are lifted up. And I think at this moment it's even more so important to make sure that that we make sure that all of us, especially those folks that need an extra helping hand, are lifted, because it will help all of us at the end. Then Cameron, let me turn it over to you to Coast Pride, and you're based in the coast, San Mateo County in Half Moon Bay. And you're serving that community along the coast. I'm pretty sure all the way from San Francisco to Santa Cruz, up and down the coast and into San Mateo County. Can you same question, and if you can pick up on what Frankie was saying about the services and connecting those, but some of the challenges that you're facing and ways to deal with those challenges.
Thanks, Francisco. Yeah, and Frankie, thank you for teeing me up perfectly. Your points were the same ones I was going to bring up, so I'm just going to expand on that a little bit, talk about a little bit of the work that we've done in partnership recently around this current climate. So like Frankie said, funding uncertainty, even though we're in California and Coast Pride doesn't have any federal funding, we're already hearing that the federal uncertainty is going to be affecting county funding that we rely on at Coast Pride. So it is hitting us, not immediately, but it will be. And like Frankie said, it's not innovative, but we're turning our focus more towards private funding and non-governmental funding sources for long-term planning because of that. And then again, like Frankie said, capacity is a huge challenge, and there's a significant increase in demand right now without us having more money to hire more staff. So like Gabrielle and Frankie said, really focusing on partnerships and also resourcing folks with information that we don't have to create ourselves. We can go to the experts to provide that information. So the example Frankie was alluding to was we worked together between Coast Pride and the San Mateo County Pride Center. I see Alex and Ashani are on this call, shout out. The three of us got to work together on creating a post-election FAQs sheet that answered a lot of the questions that both of our orgs were getting over and over again in the months after the election. And they're just link after link after link in that resource to send people to the places where they can find the expertise that they're looking for without us having to try to answer those questions and basically case manage for every single person who's having similar concerns. Even though we wish we could do that, we just can't. And it's not our place either. And then the other thing that we've been doing, thank you, Marilyn, for dropping that link in the chat. That's to the FAQ sheet or the link tree for the FAQ sheet. So the other thing that has been helpful for Coast Pride has been really relying on existing volunteer leaders to provide support. We have a really fantastic parent caregiver team that peer leads our parents and caregiver support group, and they have just really stepped up to the plate. We've had a huge increase in attendance at the parents and caregivers group since January, and I've been able to work with those parent leaders to help them know what organizations to subscribe to newsletters for, setting them up with what they need to be able to forward that information to the parent caregiver group through a signal chat so that they can all stay connected and support each other. And me or other staff at Coast Pride doesn't have to be the hub of the wheel for that. I can just support the leaders in the volunteer community to support the rest of the community. So that's been really meaningful for us. I'll stop there.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So I want to get to the second question, and and definitely, right, San Mateo and Santa Clara County, there's some similarities, but there's also some differences in those counties. And I would say the South Bay, compared to the rest of the Bay Area, is unique in that it combines really suburban, urban, and coastal communities, each with its own rich history and diverse populations. And one thing that's hard to ignore, especially for the South Bay, is a significant wealth gap across both counties, which features some of the most pronounced disparities in the San Francisco Bay Area that we know of. Also, unlike more densely populated urban centers, you all know very well, these counties are more spread out, making it harder to rely on public transit and often leading people to depend on more on cars or other ways of getting around. And then the last thing I want to say is that, that an interesting aspect of the experience of suburban and coastal LGBT communities who are often find themselves balancing between progressive and more conservative environments. This is especially pronounced as LGBTQ people are living through some of the particular challenges of today, from personal and community safety concerns about LGBTQ rights and freedoms. So having said that, I thought it's important to lift that up in terms of really the South Bay, because I think it's one of the many key features of the South Bay and the environments you all are working in. So Frankie, let me start with you in terms of, what positive action can the LGBT community and individuals take to contribute to a collective sense of hope and empowerment, even in the face of adversity today? And this is an add-on, what actions can we take now to ensure we continue to build a stronger, more resilient movement for the future?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's an important one, because it can feel daunting, right? And I think there's I put a lot of these questions out to the team, and I just want to name quickly that a lot of them gave input. I don't like to take credit for things that aren't mine. So let me just say that quickly. It's important to me. But I think some of the answers are things that we already know and then just need to continue doing. I think one of the biggest things we have to combat overall is apathy and hopelessness. And I think sometimes it's just finding our footing, because there was a strategic, chaotic mess that was thrown at us on purpose so that people couldn't figure out how to sort of collect the response and do a coordinated response, right? What is this? What is this? What is this? But what we know is that we need us, we need our allies, we need our advocates, and we need everyone who is capable of responding to respond. And I think Gabriella mentioned stuff, Cam mentioned stuff. Visibility matters, right? Even just talking about that rainbow crosswalk, it still matters, and it matters even more. But there's a difference between what's at risk for people. So find the ways to show your support in the ways that are comfortable and safe, because it's not the same for everyone. And I think it's a matter of finding your role in the movement. I think there's too many narratives that tell us you can only do things one way, right? Activism looks like marching in the street. And that's just not true. I live with disabilities. a lot of them are mobility issues. I can't march in the streets anymore, but I can donate, I can fund, I can call legislation. So find your role because it matters, and we can all do that in a way that works. And if you don't know what that is, that's where people like us can assist because there are so many avenues that you might not even be aware of. And that's part of the collective and community building that also brings the togetherness, which is the catalyst for hope. I'm doing something and it matters. Um, I think also it's the leaning on each other, the way Cam, Coast Pride and Pride Center has. Gabriella, you and I talked about how we need to make a call, and I think we just need to make time to do that. And it's that coordinated effort, right? We can't do it all, and that's part of the find your role. Um, and then I think also, I just want to just add that I think Francisco, you said too that a big part of our community, I think, is it's about liberation. We're trying to help people realize you don't have to follow this formulaic, force fed narrative we've all been told since birth. We're not your enemy. And this legislation is not just an attack on our rights, it's telling us what we are and we don't belong as human beings. And that's what's been hard. But the reality is we are trying to show people freedom. It doesn't have to be marriage, kids, houses, this box, this box, this box. We can make our own rules. And so I just want to say one more thing if I can. And it's that whatever your advocacy is, just don't forget, please, that while you're marching in the streets, don't forget to dance in them too. Because the worst thing that we can do is let them steal our joy.
Definitely.
We deserve so much more than that.
Definitely. Thank you for adding that, because it is about joy through resistance. Cameron, let me turn it over to you. Similar question in terms, how can people contribute? How can we build a collective at this time?
Thanks. Yeah, the first thing I wrote down was to take care of yourself. Stay grounded, breathe, take breaks. Don't try to do too much, especially if you are a trans person, gender expansive, part of the LGBTQ community. It's okay to take a nap. I've been really into Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey lately. So yeah, take care of yourself so that you can show up in a meaningful way. And then kind of along those lines and building off of a little bit of what Frankie said, I heard this recommendation, I can't remember where, but I really appreciated the idea of picking one local organization or project that you're really excited about and focus on that. So instead of getting overwhelmed by the lists and lists and lists online on social media of all these places that you can donate to, all of them are doing amazing work. And it's not to say that they don't all deserve your support, but it can be a lot more effective if you pick one and really focus on that and dive into it, donate to that org, follow their work, volunteer for them, go to their events, just wrap yourself up in that organization. And it helps us as people working at the organizations too, because then the volunteers really get to know what we do and we can rely on you a lot more. So that's number two. And then the third thing is actually something that Francisco already said, which is working together with people and organizations at the intersection of marginalized identities. There's a saying that I hear a lot, rising tides lift all boats, I think. So took me a second to get that in my head. So yeah, working together and then especially working to support our most marginalized communities lifts all of us up and brings joy because we get to hang out with other people and do things together, which brings me to my last item, which is to gather. And this can be something casual. One of our most fun events this year so far has been our queer social once a month. And we do an arts and crafts activity and we do karaoke. And it's just a really fun time and a great salve for everything else that we're dealing with. And I think that that also gets to the second part of the question that Francisco was asking, which is what actions can we take now to ensure we continue building a stronger, more resilient movement for the future? If we're having fun together, especially in intergenerational spaces where we can learn from each other, no one can break us. So yeah, that's what I've
Yeah.
got.
No, thank you. I mean, I learned my activism and my community work from elders, people that came before me and learned how to do things in an amazing way. Gabrielle, South Bay, Santa Clara, take us home. Similar, similar question in
Well,
terms of like, right? I mean, and I know, and I think the beauty of having the three of you here is that the centers do embody those, that collective sense of power and freedom and hope and resistance. So what same question to you, what are some of the collective sense of hope and empowerment that we can do together, and how can we work together, contribute to building a stronger movement, because we're in it for a long run.
well, part of I know what I do is I reach out as far as possible, into the community so that I know what else is going on. A really good example, in 2021, it was our 40th anniversary. So that's a long time for a nonprofit to, make it through. So for the 40th anniversary, what I ended up coming up with by talking to a lot of people is because San Jose is into murals, we commissioned a ginormous mural of Billy DeFrank, who is our namesake, an African American drag queen from the 1970s. And because of the AIDS crisis in the 80s, nobody knew anymore, what is Billy DeFrank? And I'm going, first of all, he was an African American drag queen, and our name is based on his drag name. It's not a French name. and and so what we did was it took me almost a year to find an African American queer artist who is Serge Gay Jr., a very successful, amazing artist who also does murals, especially in San Francisco. And he got really into the whole project. He saw Billy DeFrank as his elder that he was bringing alive on the wall, because I had Billy DeFrank in my heart, and he put the art into what I was explaining to him, that Billy DeFrank was everything we want to be. He loved everybody. He was called Mr. Love, blah, blah, blah. And he gave money to all the little groups that were being activists after Stonewall. And so I'm going, so anyway, I talked to Serge Gay Jr. for about 3 hours and he was hooked. So we did the mural and we did so I decided to reach out and did the press conference with the NAACP because Billy DeFrank was African American. And they were so touched by that. This is now a number of years ago. And because of that relationship that I developed with the NAACP, they have now decided to have an LGBTQ committee and have invited me to it because of the outreach I did years ago. And so that's part of what's important, because in Santa Clara County, the African American population is so low, it's minimal, it's like 2%. It's really hard to sort of organize around. And so we're working together on that. And that is just one example of what I've been doing, but within the organization, we're all excited that 5051 is doing all these amazing rallies. So we asked ourselves, what can we do to enhance that? Because they're doing a great job. So we did a poster making party on the Thursday before the April 5th event. So people could make posters for people who didn't have time to make one. So we brought a bunch to the rally and people made their own. And it created community among people who have a hard time with big crowds. So we had a smaller group, of course, making posters. And that is a contribution in breaking the isolation that people have been feeling. We actually have taken on the Surgeon General's report on isolation and loneliness and have turned it into our mission and purpose. Is that what we do is we break the isolation by building community and providing discussion groups and diverse activities so people can come together, meet each other, and discover, oh, I like movies too. So then small groups of people go off and go to the movies together, or they'll go to their favorite coffee shop or eat certain foods. We don't have to make those events happen. All we do is make, our older adults have a monthly luncheon, and we just had it today, and we couldn't stop them from talking to each other. I was trying to make announcements. And there were about 45 of them today, and it has grown from 3 people to 45. So, and then I know they're getting to know each other and figuring out what else could they do. We don't have to make that happen. We just make whatever works to bring people in happen. And that's why, Rainbow Bingo, we actually play bingo and we keep it at $15 to play 10 games. And that's so that people can afford it, have fun. A lot of people make it a date night and have a great old time. And we have door prizes, like a real bingo thing. And so what happens is you can come into the center, be yourself, explore who you are, and take that strength and confidence out into the world with you. And it's like within our center, we don't care who you are. We just want to support whatever it is you're exploring in yourself, because none of us pop out lesbian. None of us pop out non-binary, none of us pop out knowing exactly who we are. It's such a process. Whereas heterosexual people seem to think they know who they are. They don't have a process. They just, go off and do their thing. Whereas we have to process everything, even what we wear. People experiment with what they wear at the center, and I don't know. It's I'm exploring in the community where we can work together, and I'm listening to everyone who's coming into the center about what is it that you're getting from being here, and let's do more of that.
No, definitely. And yeah, and I think on line through for the 3 of you, what you've lifted up is that, right, is that those small acts of resistance, whatever they look like for you, is those ripples in a big pond that create the waves, right? And then how do we find community? How do we find joy in different ways? How do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of each other? And I think the beauty of our community, as diverse as it is, we're also very creative people in how we come up with our solutions. So thank you, Gabrielle, Cameron, and Frankie, for such an engaging conversation. As we transition to the Q&A portion of today's event, I want to thank you for your participation so far. This is your opportunity to engage directly with our panelists as ask any questions you may have. To respect everyone's privacy, we'll be stopping the recording at this time. But before we move forward, we also like to remind you about the Horizons LGBTQ organization directory. This comprehensive resource provides information over 100 LGBTQ nonprofits and programs across the 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a valuable tool to help you connect with services, organizations, and initiatives that are making a difference in our community. And you can definitely filter by county or by city. So explore the directory. We also look forward to hearing your thoughts and having a meaningful discussion. Thank you again for being with us, and let's continue working together to support and empower our community.